Good morning, everyone. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces back for our third edition of this summit, and it's also a pleasure to see so many new additions this year. Welcome, everyone. As you know, we are seeing incredible advancements in genomics and stem cell research. And these advancements really have massive potential to revolutionize personalized medicine with customized treatments for each individual patient. And this is what we are focusing on this morning. I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Hashmi, Dr. Narain, and Dr. Bartram. Thank you very much once again for being with us this morning, gentlemen. Dr. Hashmi, would you first explain to us the current state of stem cell infrastructure in the UAE? We know we have been seeing incredible advancements here, especially over the past 1 year. Would you enlighten us, please?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us. We're very delightful for having Department of Health research team here. In the past few years, there has been a huge momentum throughout the world to go towards ATMPs, which are cell and gene therapy, stem cell therapeutics to cure many diseases. In the UAE, as your specific question is, that where are we currently? We've got state-of-the-art GMP facilities, which will develop and manufacture in-house stem cell therapeutics for the treatment of patients. We've got at least 7 centers between Dubai and Abu Dhabi, which are doing either a bone marrow transplant or a gene therapy. This includes the gene therapy, for example, inside the eye, in the retina. This includes classic bone marrow transplants. And most importantly, CAR T cells as well, that are already happening. But that's not where we want to go, actually. This is the current state. Now we want to put in the infrastructure the Department of Health is putting in for massive clinical trials to actually lead the way of innovation and discovery in cell and gene therapy and stem cell therapeutics. Thank you.
And you have already been very successful. You recently announced the UAE's first CAR T cell, where you are withdrawing cells from sick patients, genetically modifying them and re-injecting them into those patients. So it's remarkable advancements that you're making. Dr. Narain, how do you see stem cell therapies evolving in personalized medicine at Sheikh Shakhbout Medical City?
Thank you for having me here. I think to the point, there has been so much change in the way we treat patients, and particularly in a clinical environment. Now at Sheikh Shakhbout Medical City, besides the wide variety of cases and caseload which we have, I think we're in a unique position, like many institutes. We have a very strong clinical trials unit, which Dr. Shahrukh was speaking about. And the relevance of this is, besides the macro care which we are delivering, I think now care, when you speak about personalized medicine, is moving to the cellular level, the genomic level. This is a bit like astrophysics and the physics of subatomic particles. I think we were in that astrophysics phase, and now we are coming to the cellular phase for treatment. Now, the only FDA-approved stem cell therapy is, of course, bone marrow transplant, and everything else is in the realm of clinical trials. We are committed to the science of longevity as Pure Health and Sheikh Shakhbout Medical City. We already have a clinical trial which has been initiated, which is one of the 16 clinical trials in the world, where we are using human bone marrow-derived allogenic stem cells in a particular subset of longevity called frailty, to see what the outcomes are in this. We recently acquired the status of a Center of Excellence in burns. And as you know, that stem cells can work in regeneration, but they can also work in replacement. And I have been speaking with our burns team, and there is tremendous momentum and innovation which is on the horizon as to how can you replace lost skin tissue? And this is an area where there are some isolated clinical trials, not huge in number, and I think we have an opportunity along with the DOH to see how we can take this further, because everything which is available at this point in time is largely artificial. And of course, two of the very big breakthroughs, which my colleagues will know, will be CRISPR technology and the Yamanaka transcription, where essentially you can take a normal skin cell and make it behave like an embryonic stem cell. And that gives you huge potential, whether it is in burns. We have a center of excellence in neurosciences, so we can look at it in traumatic spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries to regenerate nerve tissues. So we have the infrastructure in place, we have the clinical load, and as he said, most of this will be clinical trials, but I think we have an opportunity to lead rather than follow. And this is where we would like to work with the DOH as SSMC.
And hopefully these clinical trials will deliver positive outcomes in the near future, and we will be following up with you closely. Dr. Bartram, at Great Ormond, you are researching cutting-edge treatments for children with rare diseases. How is this advanced genome diagnostics and stem cell research really transforming the treatment of genetic disorders in children?
Thank you for having me here today. So I think, as we alluded to, it was mentioned in the opening speech, medicine shouldn't be reactive, and what we have the power now with sequencing technology, especially the rapid implementation of whole genome sequencing, which you're seeing here with the Emirati Genome Project, and in London in the UK with the Genomics England initiative with what we call the Generation Study. So we're sequencing babies at birth. And the importance of that is you get to know the diagnosis immediately, so you get to start treatment before symptoms have even occurred. So this is really the way we're going. And so what that will allow is precision medicine, proper precision medicine, where we know from birth how we're going to treat this patient. And we're already seeing this in the clinic, and I think patient examples are always the best. So before I flew yesterday in my clinic, we had a patient with beta thalassemia, who did not have a stem cell donor, either a sibling or an unrelated donor. And they've just turned 12, and luckily, through using gene therapy, we've been able to cure this child, and it was delightful to look at this child's bone marrow and see a normal bone marrow free of transfusions. And that's just an isolated example. We're also treating Fanconi anemia with stem cell therapy, and moving away from hematology, diseases like spinal muscular atrophy and Duchenne muscular dystrophy. There is these gene therapy options, so there's hope out there for all these patients. And the challenge is now how we scale this and partner across the world to bring these therapies to everyone. And I think finally, in the cancer field, as we talked about, CAR T-cell therapy is revolutionizing how we're treating patients. And also in that field, we're moving away from autologous CAR T-cell therapy, where you have to take your own T-cells out, and if you can imagine a patient who's had cancer therapy, their T-cells might not be functioning the best, their immune system's not working well. But what we've developed, and we're pioneering at Great Ormond Street, is base-edited CAR T-cells. So these are off-the-shelf options for patients who are previously untreatable. And we're seeing those in action, first-in-man studies, and they're working and curing diseases which are previously untreatable. So we've got this massive paradigm shift now in medicine, where we've gone from a bunch of patients who could only be managed with symptom treatment, with a poor outlook for life, who are now being cured with this technology.
Treating patients before symptoms even emerge, absolutely incredible. And as you know, we do have thalassemia prevalence among the UAE national population, so this is particularly of interest to us here. Dr. Hashmi, how would you say recent advancements and investments, how have they enhanced research and treatment capability in the UAE?
Thank you very much. And building up on what Jack just mentioned, that genomic sequencing helps in identifying patients ahead of time. We just authorized and actually approved the screening program for premarital screening, and that was announced by DOH just last week. The Emirati Genome Project, if you find clusters of genes, pathogenic mutations, because we're doing whole genome sequencing for a rare disease, then we can develop drugs or gene therapy against those. So that's going to be a true cutting-edge innovation that's going to save patients' lives. That's one of the areas that we're trying to advance medicine by combining the genotype with the phenotype, basically genome with the phenome, in order to make clinical sense to develop gene therapies and other molecular biology cutting-edge technologies. Secondly, I think the nation saw us announcing the DOH MON grants last week. We're going to give out up to 2 million dirham per grant for people to do cutting-edge research. To answer your question specifically, there are 8 or 9 priority areas, and the first priority areas listed there is cell and gene therapy and stem cells, including CAR T cells, gene editing with CRISPR-Cas9, base editing, prime editing, TILs, and also, more importantly, in vivo and ex vivo gene therapies, which, as Jack mentions, are beyond hematology now. SMAs we're already doing in UAE, retinitis we're doing, but now we're entering the polygenic diseases as well. That's where the change is going to happen in cell and gene therapy.
And Dr. Bartram, can you share with us some breakthroughs that you find particularly promising?
Yeah, I think in the field of cancer, CAR T-cell therapy, has been absolutely revolutionary. Even 2 years ago, there were patients who had absolutely no option, who we're now curing. And as I mentioned before, starting from clinical trial with off-the-shelf CAR T-cell therapy, which is becoming real now, and we're using that in our center. And the real challenge is now how we scale that up and make it equitable so you don't have to be in central London to receive this therapy. And this can only be achieved by partnerships, events like this, and collaborating internationally now to try and to make these treatments available for all. And then in the area of rare disease, as I touched on before, now we're using gene therapy in Fanconi anemia, in beta thalassemia, in sickle cell disease. So these diseases which really have had no attention over the last 20, 30 years, where the only cure was bone marrow transplant, which comes with massive toxicities and side effects and isn't always successful. So it's giving hope to millions of people now around the world. And as I said, the real challenge I see is how we scale this up to make it available to everyone internationally, not just in large centers, individual centers in cities around the world.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that. I'd like to hear from all of our panelists, if you would kindly share with us the regulatory challenges and supports for stem cell and cellular therapy here in the UAE.
Well, from the regulatory perspective, we do allow the trials, the phase 1 for the cancers, for morbid diseases and neurological disorders, and our new guidelines coming up, which are going to be published to the public in a couple of months, will have all the details of drug development in phase 1 trials on stem cells and CAR T and gene therapy. We're making it easy. We have an IND discussion promptly, within a month, approvals of the clinical trials, including a first-in-human trial within 28 working days for stem cell therapeutics of any sort for any disease. And then we advise actually on the whole pathway from preclinical development to the phase 1 trial, the first-in-human, then to filing the BLA after the phase 2 or phase 3 trial to commercial approval. As Jack said, therapy for all. That's the goal, to bring the made in the UAE concept to UAE so that we can develop these therapeutics here, and obviously with the supply chain and manufacturing, we can scale it up actually, and that requires a public-private partnership, which the Department of Health orchestrates as well with the business and venture capitalist firms and the private equity firms. So we do all this actually to really stimulate and make it easy for the scientists and the physicians and the healthcare systems to work to really bring in these therapies. And we're seeing, thalassemia, sickle cell, many other diseases being cured with gene therapy at the moment. We need this here, and we need to be the leaders in the world.
Dr. Narain, the regulator says they're making it easier. Would you like to comment on that?
Absolutely. I think overall, if you look at the UAE in these cutting-edge advancements, whether it is artificial intelligence or stem cells, they are clearly seen as leaders in creating an ecosystem or an environment which encourages research. And they clearly want to position themselves as leaders. Now, obviously, you need the regulatory framework. We can see that coming into place in stem cell therapy also. The environment is extremely conducive. Of course, some of the developments in stem cell therapy have helped. You had the era of embryonic stem cells with all the ethical issues associated. Now with the Yamanaka transcription, basically induced pluripotent stem cells, some of those ethical issues, shall we say, have been reduced to a certain extent. I'm not saying it's a free-for-all playing field. So developments in stem cell therapy and genomics and the very positive approach of the UAE leadership, seeing that, I compare it, but just like artificial intelligence, cellular medicine and medicine at the cellular level, they have realized is going to be right at the forefront, and I think they want to lead in this. So we see all the moves and all the steps being taken. We can see that on the ground.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time for this panel, but I think we're all celebrating your success, your achievements, and we'll be following your advancements closely as you continue to keep us in good health. Thank you very much for chatting with me today.
Thank you for having us.